Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. Afternoon, Jim. How's the weather where you are?
36 degrees, approaching 40.
It's actually not too bad today as well, to be honest.
Needless to say, why I've got a tan and I've got my t-shirt on.
Good. So today we are going to be discussing financial independence versus financial freedom. This is a really good one. And I know you've got a lot to give to us today, Jim, on this topic. And I think if we look at it from both sides and look at that whole journey to financial freedom, I know that a lot of our listeners and a lot of our watchers, people watching, that is what their ultimate goal will be. So this is going to be really interesting for them. And just look at how maybe they're different and how they land in the journey to financial freedom, because we've got financial security, financial independence, and then ultimately financial freedom. And sometimes financial independence and freedom and things, they're used interchangeably. But are they really the same thing, or are they different? Or and that's what we're going to discuss today.
Completely different, on opposite ends of the spectrum. Everybody on TikTok, I'm just going to remind everyone on TikTok, we are streaming on 8 other channels at the same time, so we can't have exclusive for TikTok. If you've got questions, please feel free to ask them. I will catch up with them. The same with Instagram as well, and we have all our channels, our 8 channels: Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. All our Facebook audiences as well. So this is what we're going to talk about. Richard, everybody confuses financial independence with financial freedom, and they don't realise that there is a distinct difference in what it is. And a lot of people actually use them interchangeably, but they are different. So let's take this closer look, as you'd said, and think about this. And well, classic example is, let's take the toddler. Let's take a toddler who's learning to walk, for example, and apply that to your finances.
Yeah.
Are you at the point in your life where you become mobile, so to speak? Can you go anywhere you want? Or are you living from salary to salary, paycheck to paycheck? Yeah. Most people in this country, in the UK, in the world actually, live from paycheck to paycheck, and they don't even live to their paycheck. They run out of money before the end of the month.
That's going to be so relatable to a lot of people.
Yeah, I used to talk about all the time, about 35 years ago actually, before property actually. I used to stand in people's homes and I used to show them a plan in network marketing. I used to say, you can be financially free, financially independent. And I used to decide to them that most people will die before they get to retirement. A lot will continue to have to work because they can't afford to retire. And a lot will retire on 2/3 of what they couldn't afford to live on in the first place. And that's pretty frightening. But that is the same statistics today as it was then. And it will always be. You have a distinct choice here, what category you're going to fall in and what one you're going to jump into itself. Yeah. Whether it's going to be financial independence, whether it's going to be financial freedom, or are you just content with staying exactly where you are right now? Now, for a lot of people, they actually try to convince themselves they're happy where they are right now. And in actual fact, we just discussed it before we came on here about when it comes to a salary negotiation, do you actually expect an increase in your salary? And why do you want that increase? Is it because you need it? Or is it because you want it? There's a distinction there. And do you need more money and more things to validate who you are and what you do? This is what financial independence, financial freedom talk about as well. Yeah. This is actually this is an interesting one. A lot of people actually think I live this lavish lifestyle. It's now about 20 years since we changed the carpets in our house, and only now we're getting round to it. 20 years we've had our carpets in our house, and this is the first time we're actually making an attempt to change it. And I only believe it's because Ben's going to bring a girl home. And if he was bringing a girl home, that's it. We wouldn't be doing it. Genuinely, I think that's why we're doing it. But that's 20 years. Most people change their carpets and change their kitchens and change their bathrooms like it's a fashion statement for them. But do you actually need it? That's what I keep asking.
Yeah, I think the difference between a want and a need, and like you said about money and material things, validating people and needing them to validate themselves, I think is something that a lot of people will do, and that's how they live.
Yeah. Somebody asked me how did I get rich? Property wealth creation over the last 30 years. But then, is it rich or is it wealthy? Because there's a distinction as well between rich and wealthy, isn't there?
Yeah.
Anybody could be rich if you study and get a fantastic job. Because being rich is about things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Being wealthy is about being able to choose what you want to do when you want to do it. And that's kind of where I see financial independence and financial freedom. Notice how I manoeuvred that back quite good.
Yeah, that's quite good. And I think as we speak about achieving financial freedom today, we will reference a lot to property investment, which is, of course, what we do, and that's why we will. But I mean, this will apply to
It's not necessarily what we do, Richard. Property investment is not necessarily what we do. It's what I do, and it's what we do as agents.
Yes.
However, you show me something that performs over the medium to long term better than property investment, and I'll probably consider doing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've said that over all the years, and not once have I heard anything different. It actually justifies it's better than property investment. It is still the best investment and asset class ever. People always need a roof over their head. And some people just can't buy because of the circumstances or because they just don't want to buy. They choose not to buy. Generation rent has now appeared. They are choosing not to buy. And as more and more homes get more and more unaffordable, it's not the fault of anybody buying them up. It's the fault of lack of supply, which is to do with the government policies in the UK. That's what's causing this problem. And as inflation eats in and salaries move up and people make more money, property becomes more desirable, it goes up in price still, and it's still a good market right now. It's still a good market. There is no impending crash on the horizon right now. I actually came up as a memory last year, and we talked about exactly the same thing. And we're a year on, and it never appeared. No recession, nothing else. The market's still buoyant. We've still got a restriction in supply, and that's what's bolstering it up. So property is the best investment class ever. And even though the price of the property goes down, you're still earning money on the property with the income that's generated as a result of somebody being in it.
Yeah, you've still got that cash flow. Yeah. But you make reference there to salaries and things, Jim, and people's living salary to salary or paycheck to paycheck. And I think the thing to think about for your own self is what would happen to your life if you were maybe to lose your job today. Say you would lose your job today, would you still have enough income via different sources other than what your salary was to cover maybe your basic living expenses? And do you have like an emergency fund as a backup?
Yeah.
And how about, do you have enough income to maybe subsidise you indefinitely and fund your current lifestyle? They're all things to think about. I think when you're thinking about financial independence and ultimately financial freedom.
Yeah, a good point. Good point, exactly. The answer to that question is yes, I could sit on a beach for the rest of my life and still make money. In fact, I'm going to come back from here to the business and we've still made more money than I went away with, if that makes sense.
And that's because we're talking about income, Jim. We're not talking about savings or money you've got in the bank or anything like that. We're talking about income that that comes from obviously your businesses and your buy-to-let portfolio.
And also look at the savings though, Richard. The saving is wealth. Now, a lot of people build wealth, right? For example, here is Jeff Bezos, classic example. He builds wealth, right? In Amazon. So the Amazon stock goes up as a result. Do you know Amazon's famously never made a profit?
Yeah, we spoke about that before, yeah.
Amazon's never made a profit because they just put that income that they generate, in other words, the profit that they make, they put that back in straight away and they invest it in other areas. So they don't make a profit, but they build huge amounts of wealth, and that is not taxable wealth. It's taxable when you die in this country, but there's ways to mitigate that and pass that on so you don't have that. But that's how you do it. So there's no surprise that, it's richly, and I think, thinking of Napoleon Hill, wrote a book about it, and it's got Grow Rich While You Sleep.
Yeah.
That's what property does. It doesn't do it day to day, but it does medium to long term. And I know property prices will double in the next 20 years. And we can go back to this at this point in time, and actually in 20 years' time, I'll still be here, by the way. I'm intending to live until at about 120-year-old, maybe longer if I could get away with it. You notice how I pushed it out now?
Yeah, I was just going to say it was 100 the last time we spoke about that.
Well, you've got to aim big, you've got to have a goal that you focus for, and if you keep pushing for that, then you will last a lot longer. But then what happens is your whole demeanour and the way you act and the way you are right now changes because you realise you've got to do certain things, and you've not got to do other things which will allow you to live to that age. So you start to live that life now. Does that make sense? And that's exactly what you should do with financial independence and financial freedom. You'll live the life as if you're getting it, you've got it now. And that does not mean run out and buy a new car, run out and buy a new house, run out and do anything else. This is about how you focus on the person you want to become and think, okay, if that's the person I want to become, what do I need to do now in order to become that person? And a lot of people lose their sight of that and lose vision of that. They don't understand it's a journey. It's not a destination. Suddenly you don't wake up one day and go, oh, I'm financially independent or I'm financially free. You don't just wake up. It's a progressive thing to do that over a longer period of time. Now, there's no surprise that, in the last couple of years, I bought more properties than I bought in my first 15 years.
Yeah.
In 1 year, in the last couple of years, we'll just say 2 years, I bought more properties than I bought my first 15 years. And this year, I'm going to buy more properties than I bought in the first 20 years.
It's funny to think it like that.
That is. And remember the goal that I set 2 or 3 years back. Mind I says to you, I'm going to buy 20 properties this year, and you went, oh, and then I went, hold it. I need to think about that differently. I need to buy 50. I need to set my goal higher. How many am I going to buy?
Yeah, well, you're doing better this year. Yeah.
I'm going to hit the 50.
Yeah.
So there's no surprise. You get what you expect. That's the key there. You get what you expect, and that's what it is.
Yeah, do you know what that? And like you say, it's about mindset, and obviously you've had goals that you've set and things. But you said about obviously having the same, living the life now as you would when you get there. And I think for the time I've known you, and obviously your journey went way before that as well. You've always been the same, and you've always lived the same, and your approach was always the same. And some people might think, oh, Jim's always jet setting and doing this and doing that, and not really. And you didn't really live any differently than what you did back in the beginning, although you're a lot more financially secure.
Yes. I mean, I did have somebody mention the other day on some post, an investor was going on about something, and they're going, about how much people actually put away and how much they invest of their existing income. And I say to most people, you wouldn't believe the ridiculously low amount of income we actually survive on. And I mean survive, it's need rather than want. I just look at it and what I've developed and what I'm building is I'm just a caretaker for that wealth. And that wealth will get passed on to the generations after me, and then they'll be the caretaker for that wealth as well, and everybody else will be the caretaker for that wealth. But that wealth isn't there for me. It's to do benefit. And fair enough, I'm getting something out of it. I've got everything I ever want. I don't want anything else. I don't really need anything else. I mean, there's no surprise when I tell you, even our kitchen's falling apart, and it's like, do I really need to replace it? No, not really. But if Elaine says at some point in time, it's like, look, we got a new kitchen, we need a new kitchen. I was like, okay then. But for me, it doesn't bother me at all. It makes no difference to me at all. The more important thing is building the wealth. It's building financial independence. It's building financial freedom. It's building what I call financial security.
Yeah,
that's probably that is the most important driver for me. And the other one is never being answerable to anyone else ever.
Yeah, that's a really important one as well.
Regardless of what you say politically.
I think that what you say there about never having to answer to anyone else and always making your own decisions and being in charge of your own life, that is, to me, would be a validation enough rather than all the material things and to justify your success. I think that for me would be more beneficial.
Financial security is probably one of the most important things. Again, I'll go back to the early days where I was taught by my mentors, and my mentors used to say to me, you know, look at an airline pilot. They have to go through a health test and a physical test every single year. Could you imagine when it came to the end of the year and that airline pilot was maybe earning 60 or 80,000 pounds a year, and that's where their lifestyle was, and all of a sudden they got told that, I'm sorry, you've not passed the test, you're not physically fit anymore, you cannot fly anymore, you're out of a job.
Yeah.
£80,000 lifestyle is down the Swanee. What about a surgeon that relies on their hands to do intricate surgery? And they're getting hundreds of thousands of years to do this, a brain surgeon even, and they rely on their hands to do this. Could you imagine if they cut their hand when they were out doing something in the garden, and then they weren't able to perform, and they got maybe an infection, and they weren't able to do their job? They're out of business. Their lifestyle is up the Swanee. So this is, financial security is the most important thing. I mean, there is other things, obviously. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic drivers of our society is food and shelter. Now, you know yourself, Richard, once you get food and shelter, the next thing comes, well, eventually it leads to self-actualization. You know, that's what people end up. And then they jump back and forward, you know, at some point in time, if you lose your house like I did when I was a young age, and if you didn't have a place to go and you didn't have a job, then you're back to, I just need the basics, food and shelter again.
Yeah.
So you start from scratch. So that's the old thing. But I never, ever want to be in that position ever again. Although I've said to everybody, if I lost everything tomorrow, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't make any difference to me. I'd just go back to living the normal lifestyle I've always led, which is what I do now.
Which is good that you've not got yourself accustomed to living some big lavish lifestyle and things. I mean, you do have perks and obviously things like your place where you are and things as well. But it wouldn't be that much of a big shock to you if you had to go back.
No, not to me at all. It's probably because you've got emergency funds as well. I'm not a dafty here. I've got funds outside of what I do normally here today. So there is funds in terms of pension funds. You know, I always tell people my pension was always property, but I use pensions as a tax, in order to give tax breaks and stuff like that. So that's why I'm using pensions. But also it's a nest egg, just in case anything else happens. At least we've got the basic fundamentals to keep going from there. And I think, to me, I don't bother about that, but I tell Elaine that quite a lot, my wife, because I think she just likes to know we're secure if anything else happens. Yeah. So then she allows me that this is key and important as well, is actually communicating with your partner to make sure they understand exactly where they are, because they're always sitting nervous. Because if you keep all the cards to yourself and don't tell them what's going on, then you don't need to tell them everything. But all they need to know is, are we going to be secure if anything goes wrong? So I explained to Elaine, it's like, we've got X amount, you know, if anything goes wrong, we've always still got this.
We've got that backup, yeah.
Yeah, we've always got it. We've always got that there. It's not necessarily a backup, it's there. I don't do backups. I do burn the boats mentality. It's like, it's all or nothing, Monte Carlo or bust, and let's go for it. But it's calculated, it's engineered, it's process driven, it's understanding dynamics. Somebody asked me about a SAS pension this morning, Niven actually, and said, you know, the way you were talking on last week's show or Kevin's show a couple of weeks ago,
2 weeks ago,
SAS pensions, you made out that you didn't have one. And I said, absolutely, I don't have a SAS pension yet. And the reason I don't have a SAS pension is I don't have enough information to make an informed decision. I'm not just jumping into a SAS pension because somebody tells me it's a great tax break for you. Yeah. It's like, okay, show me why and how. There's no way I'm deviating from my path. There's no way I'm taking it elsewhere. If I know exactly where I'm going and how I'm going to get there, and I know I'm going to get there, why on earth would I need to do something different? Why would I need to do that? Oh, the excitement. Oh, I might make even more money. For what? More money for what? What else do I need? I tell you what I do though, and I've said it this morning, and it is on my own personal Facebook page, is the fact that I continue to make more money so I can give more away to people that need it more than me. That's it. Yeah, so financial security is a real big thing. It's the first run on the ladder to financial freedom and early retirement. Financial security also gives you that real good confidence that you're and knowing that even if you lose your job, as I said before, that it still covers the essential expenses without reaching out to someone else for a loan.
Yeah.
Financial independence.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, financial independence, and here's the differences here. So if you had enough passive income to fully cover your current lifestyle, that's including all your little extras beyond the bare basics that you currently enjoy. And that might even be just your coffee in the morning, your Amazon Prime membership, all these things that we spoke about, family trips, which are important to people to spend time with their families and things. That would be considered financially independent. And being financially independent means that you can retire early and continue living your current lifestyle without ever having to work again. In order to be financially independent, you must build multiple streams of income. And this allows you to continue earning income regardless of what you choose to do day to day.
Yeah, financial independence is really, if you look for the technical definition, it's something like if you could live for the next 6 months without any other source of income at all. So any other source of income, and this is the only income you've got coming in, about the streams of income that you've got, you're financial independent.
So, but would you say you've got enough savings to live for 6 months, but you don't have multiple income streams? Would you say you're financially independent?
Well, no, yeah. It's still defined as financial independence, still defined as that. Whether you remember financial freedom to me touches on this, which you talked about. This is where the misnomer happens. It's that slight difference in the fact that you think multiple streams of income is technically financial freedom. If you've got that all the time and you don't need to do anything, then we're financially free. But many people stop at that financial independence. But what we're about to take it one step further, maybe be a financial independent, isn't enough for you, and you want to experience true financial freedom. Well, true financial freedom means that your passive income could cover not just your current lifestyle, but also a lifestyle you've always dreamed of.
Yeah.
Flying first class. Every single time. Getting that ocean view suite. Splurging on the front row seats. Does that sound familiar?
You like a front row seat, Jim, yeah.
Does that sound familiar, Richard?
It does, yeah.
But that's essentially what I did. I remember standing at Michael Jackson in Wembley. Now, it was probably, we went to see Michael Jackson Wembley in 1988. And that's when we first went to see it. And I looked up to the boxes up the top, and all these corporate boxes. And I thought, one day, not any day, one day, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be able to have that corporate box. I'm going to be able to have that front row seat. And since 1988, that's been a driver for me every single time. These are the sort of things I wanted. The other thing I really wanted was one day I'm going to visit Richard Branson at his home.
Yeah.
And that'll happen this year.
Yeah.
And these are all things that I wanted. And I really, this is why I wanted to do what I wanted to do, because these are the things that drove me. Now, that's true financial freedom. So financial freedom means having enough of that passive income, as I said, so you don't need to worry about the things about where that money is actually coming from. Once your finances, once your finances are all sorted out and you've got everything there, then you'll have an abundance of money after it. So it was no surprise when I retired from ESA Macintosh, my full-time job, I was able to be not financially independent, but financially free.
Yeah.
Because it was about 3 or 4 years before that, I was financially independent. But I knew if I had left at that point in time, that I wouldn't be able to be financially free, because the income that was coming in at that point in time would just more or less cover my costs and give me a decent lifestyle. And I would have nothing else to reinvest. So I kept continuing to work for the next 3 or 4 years. It was also a psychological thing as well. It's like at 30-year-old thinking to yourself, it's like, I could really retire and never work again for the rest of my life. Is that possible? I don't even know anybody that's ever done that. Now, I know Ben and D'Souza know that did that, but they did that in a different model. And so it was. I didn't know anybody around about me at that time. So I then just had to get over the psychological impact about, yeah, you actually can do this. Even though I said it clear, black and white on paper, I still couldn't get my head round for 3 or 4 years about you could actually never work ever again and still earn money every single month without actually, literally, I had it down to, I was self-managed at that time. I had it down to, I only needed to work 1 day a week. Does that really work? 1 day a week? Who'd like a 1 day working week? it would kill you, Richard.
I know. I know you get. I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
To do something. We, as a species, as human beings, we have to contribute something to have meaning. We also have to engage with other people in order to have purpose. So that's a bigger thing. So when I did retire, there was no surprise it almost killed me, because it's like going from working 160 hours a week, literally, and sleeping on floors during the night, and then going back to my work in the morning. In between, it was difficult to then go right down to 1 day. Effectively 8 hours I'm talking about, not 24 hours, 8 hours, going from 160 hours, bang, right down to 8 hours. That's like an athlete doing that. Imagine an Olympic athlete just saying 1 day, it's like, I'm never going to run ever again or do what I'm doing ever again, and I'm going to stop that. And I'll maybe restrict myself to just 1 day a week for 8 hours.
Your body and your mind's ultimately going to crash.
Yeah, you'll crash and burn straight away.
Yeah,
that's what happens. So your finances, as I said, allow you to do what you want to do when you want to do it, and you never need to worry about anything ever again. That is true financial freedom.
Yeah.
And I keep having to remind myself of that, because I still think it's not gonna. It's like, how could it ever? It's impossible. It is literally impossible the way I've geared everything, that we would lose everything. It's impossible to do.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've demonstrated that there could be quite a fine line between the definitions of the two, but there's very, very big differences between financial independence and financial freedom. Gary's jumped in here and said, sounds intriguing topic. Must admit, I thought of them being the same, and a lot of people do.
Often most of us do, yeah.
Yeah. Now we're going to go on and talk about how to achieve financial freedom through property investment, and that's exactly how you achieved it, and a bit about your journey, Jim. Norman's jumped in here and said, bridging on existing buy-to-lets in order to aid purchasing more buy-to-let properties, is this a good idea?
My bridging expert that I know, the person that's a total genius when it comes to bridging, is Kevin Wright. Recycle Your Cash and Property Ninjas. Kevin Wright is absolutely brilliant at bridging. He runs a bridging company, or a broker that actually does it, and he's done hundreds of bridging loans to make that happen. And he's actually just brought his book out just now about it, and I've read it, and I tell you what, it's like, it blew my mind. It's like everything you wanted to know about bridging, we're too afraid to ask, and it really blew my mind. So Kevin Wright is a really good expert in this. You'll know Kevin because he's a bit older and he wears a yellow t-shirt all the time, and his system's called Recycle Your Cash, and you're a property ninja when you become part of it, just to have that sort of camaraderie. But I would endorse Kevin. He's really good. I've met him before. I've not been in his course, but by reading by his book, he knows what he's doing. So bridging, yeah, you can use it to aid buy-to-lets in order to purchase more buy-to-lets, but bridging's only short-term. You should only do short-term with that, Norman. It's very, very risky doing bridging any other way. Bridging is always meant short-term, but Kevin would actually tell you that anyway. Interestingly enough, a couple of people on TikTok.
Yeah.
Jim, is there a new tax coming in for landlords in Scotland? Well, there already is. It's every tax. It's called rent restrictions. It's also called the second homes ADS, additional dwelling supplement, which is 6%. I doubt very much they'll specifically bring it in for landlords, and they could do that. It's very, in order to have an administration system in order to do that, it's impossible, isn't it? It's because you could think the admin, in order to find out if somebody's actually a landlord or not, and if you don't tell anybody, they're never going to know otherwise.
They're never going to know.
And the amount of admin and people they're going to have to employ in order to police that sector, in order to make sure everything pays, is prohibitive in comparison to it. But hey ho, who wouldn't be surprised if the Scottish government goes ahead and does something so stupid?
To be fair, at this point, I don't think anything would.
I wouldn't put anything past this Scottish government. But as all things in property investment, let me just assure you, these things pass. And all these things will pass in some sort of time, over time. And you'll look back on this in years to come and think, geez, you remember when that all happened and everything happened here and everything happened there? And you'll laugh about it. But now a lot of people are getting too bent out of shape about it. They're just getting too worked up about it, and they're all fueling each other's fear. Wondering to sell up is another comment. I don't know. I don't know your personal circumstances.
Yeah, it depends.
I'm certainly not going anywhere. I will continue to be one of the UK's biggest landlords, and I will not be selling up at all anytime soon. Everything will be passed on to the next generation of my family, and they will do the same thing. And we will build a legacy. We will build an empire as a result.
Yeah. So let's talk about achieving financial freedom through investing in property. And more people have become millionaires through investing in property than any other means. So, I mean, why is that, Jim? I mean, you know, you touched on property investment and it being one of the most lucrative, but yeah. I mean, is there any specific reason why?
I think because now there's more education out there. It's never been. Remember, back in 1955, in the 1950s, about over 50% of people rented their homes. It's only about 15 to 20% now. So that shift is now coming back in that culture. And as more and more people want to rent, more and more properties are available. And therefore, there's less restriction in the market because they're not building enough properties in the first place. Therefore, and there's more people coming in on immigration. Let's be honest, and they, oh, we're going to sort everything through Brexit. It's like, that just made it worse. It's just made it worse. It's like the guy, you ever seen the thing with the boy, and it's not a political thing, but you ever seen the one with the boy on the tree, and he's sawing the branch off the tree,
but he's standing on the other side.
He's on the wrong side.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's so comical when you see things like that. You just like let them get on with it. And people have been mentioning to me about, should you not be pointing out to the Scottish government about all the failings about what they're doing and how it's all going wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell them anything. I was actually going to write to Paul McLennan, the housing minister, because I had a wordworm at the end of the housing summit when I was on stage one in St Andrews a couple of weeks ago. I had wordworm and says, look, Paul, you probably really need me on your team. You need me on your consultation team in order to ascertain how to do this properly, and also to give you feedback about the ramifications about what you're about to implement in certain areas. And I thought to myself the day, and I thought, I think you should just write to him and say you're not coming on his team. And the reason I'm not wanting to go on his team is because I'll tell him all the things that I'm benefiting from. And it's like, just keep making mistakes, because that's all they're doing right now, and all their mistakes are benefiting all of us. And the worst, the person that's losing out the most is the tenant. It's absolutely crazy.
They'll always be the ones that
most of it is the tenant. Out of all the legislative changes, the one that's suffering is the tenant, and the one that's suffering the most is the most vulnerable people in our society, and they just don't get it. Now I'm getting political, and I'm quite happy to do that. They have no idea what they're doing and what they're implementing and how it's affecting the boots on the ground, the frontline people, the people that actually matters to it. They actually think they're saving them, and everybody's waving flags at the front line going, yay, we're getting saved by the Scottish government. And it's like, no, you're not. No. You're getting screwed by the Scottish government. Left, right and centre with their policies. They're all wrong in what they're doing. And this is all because they don't want to invest or spend any more money and actually do anything for the private rented sector at all. They don't get it. So they're too busy actually trying to vilify us and demonize the private rented sector. It's actually backfiring on them, and they don't realise what's happening. And by the time they realise it's what's happening, it's like base rates and inflation. By the time you get about 6 months to a year down the road, you're too late. It's all happened 6 months to a year ago, and now you're only getting the reporting system actually showing you. So happy days are here again, and we're off again. We're off on fantastic opportunities in the private rented sector right now. And I'll say it again, there is fantastic opportunities in the private rented sector right now for the people who understand how the system works. I even had somebody call me yesterday when I was on the beach, called me for a wee consultation, and I had a wee chat with them, and they were fearful about investing in another property with a tenant in it they've just bought. And I'm like, do you not realise the opportunities are right in front of you? If you understand, and when I explained it to him,
Yeah.
I went, "Geez, I never really saw it like that." It says, "I know, but you don't see it like that because you're not in that frame of mind. Whereas I just see how that system operates and where the opportunities are in it." So yes, you can achieve, and that was a long answer to say yes, you can achieve financial freedom
I know, but I just thought I'd let
through
you know.
property investment.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other different ventures people could take. I mean, people start up businesses, they write books, I mean, people are doing mobile apps and things, they're making a fortune just now. But to do things like that, it all requires an element and level of skill. Now, obviously, like we've just explained, there's a lot of legislation and a lot of things that you need to know in order to do buy to let now. But you could hire an agent to do all that for you. Do you know what I mean? And that's the beauty of a letting agent, because they retain all that information and they keep up to date with it. So you could actually pay somebody to do it all for you for a very minimal amount as well.
I've still got people just this morning emailing me, and I've still got people on Facebook as well messaging me, saying to me, have you done anything about the rent increases? And I'm like, holy shit, you're just thinking about it still now. It's, oh my God, this window of opportunity is about to disappear as the 6-month period continues to go like that and move perpetually forward. This is a critical path, and if you don't jump in now, this is lost forever. That's how important it is. Amazingly enough, look, 8 people on TikTok, 8 people, you get thousands of people that watch somebody dance, and you've got 8 people on TikTok right now learning how to get their financial freedom.
Yeah.
That shows you there will always be a 95% group and a 5% group. These 8 people, or 9 people now, somebody's obviously caught on, 9 people now are probably the people that potentially could be in the 5% group coming on. Even though you're skint right now, if you're watching this and you're listening to this and you're taking information in and you're learning as you go, you're automatically putting yourself in the 5% group by what you're doing. Yeah. You're lifting yourself out of the 95% because you're prepared to do what other people aren't prepared to do. I will be prepared to do what other people cannot, to achieve what other people will not. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to pay that price? Are you prepared to pay the price that you need to pay? I paid my price. I tell you what, it was hefty, but I tell you what, it was worth it. 38 years old. How long is that now? 18 years ago? 18 years ago. Never needed to bother or worry ever again about it, even though I did. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But even though I did, you worry about the fact that you're not worrying. But you get over it eventually.
Human nature, I think.
Aye, and then you think to yourself, what the hell am I worrying about? So yes, you're absolutely right. I went through a fine-tooth comb. We went through all our portfolio. I sat down with one of your team, Richard, and we went through every single one and says, okay, yep, I'll get you the justification for the 6%, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Because none of these ones were at the right rent levels anyway. The tenants had been in situ, they've been in there for years and years and years. And it's like, right, okay, I cannot put the rent up now, but I have a sneaking suspicion the rents won't be allowed to be increased next year, or it might be a lot less next year because they'll use the justification about if inflation does come down, which I don't think it will. But if it did, then they'll go, oh, well, you don't need as much this year. And it's like you've lost that window of opportunity because the money you're allowed to get now, the 6%, you have to have 12% increase in cost to get 6%. But if you can't show 12% increase in cost in the last 6 months, see how your mortgage rate and how that's moving on? Because as mortgage rates stay the same, if they stay the same for the next 6 months, you won't be able to justify the 6%, the 12% increase anymore over the last 6 months in 6 months' time. So you've missed this window of opportunity for your rent increase and to realign to the near enough the right market value. So most of my tenants some of them are at the normal, what I call the LHA, which is local housing allowance, which has actually been frozen or manipulated since 2010. So it's always, and it's been frozen in the last 3 years. So it's not as if I'm charging market rate. And give you an indication about that. But people are listening in right now because they go, God, you're just trying to make more money. My average rent over the last, when I started years ago, 30 years ago, and every property I bought since then, my average rent was £427, 423 actually. In order to keep up with inflation with every single one of these properties, my average rent now today should be £625. My average rent today is £487. I'm 23% less in rent than inflation, than when it should be. So I'm 23% less. So everybody that stays with me is getting 23% less rent than inflation on average. So I'm actually doing everybody a favour. But so even though I'm increasing it by a small amount, it's not anywhere near the 23% I've been taking the hit for over all these years. So where's this misnomer that landlords are out and fleecing everybody else? That's the point.
Yeah.
But I'm still making a reasonable return. I'm okay with that. And everybody's a win-win situation. You have a tenant that stays with you for a long time, looks after the property, pays the rent on time all the time. You look after them, win-win. Now, let me just I'll take it one step further because I'm on a rant.
No, that's fine.
Right. Common misconception.
Okay.
If you're paying rent, you're not paying your landlord's mortgage. Wait, sorry? What did you just say? You're not paying your landlord's mortgage if you're paying rent. Because most landlords are interest-only mortgages. So what you're doing is you're paying the finance charges to the bank on the interest only. Now, that is what you would pay if you had an interest-only mortgage with a bank, except you've got the luxury that you don't have a tie-in with a mortgage anymore. How great is that? And you've got no responsibility for the repairs either. That's why Generation Rent probably knows what they're doing now. They understand the dynamics. One of my friends, actually, years and years ago, financial director at the time, Alistair Patterson, said to me, and I said, why do you rent all the time? Because obviously, you know, what's that? He says, well, because I've got all that money to use what I want to do when I want to do it. I don't have it all tied up in a house. And this is this mentality. In our society, you're not a success unless you own a house.
Yeah, that's a very, that's definitely a thing, and it's back to this materialistic and things like the validation thing, and
Yeah.
everybody, the expectation is, oh, you need to get your stuff together and own your own property, and I mean that is very much a thing across the whole country.
Yeah.
But like you say, Jim, more
This is
and more I hear people come into let property and that's their choice. I mean, if they really wanted to, they could have got it together and bought a property, but they don't want the financial ties. They don't want the responsibility for having to do maintenance and things. They have a lot free and easier living situation. If they want to up and leave, they can in 28 days.
Yeah. Look at it this way. A country style house and you know, a cottage in the country, stone built. Look at the amount of repairs and improvements you're going to have to do that over the years. If you're renting that, you've got the country style life, and you can just leave anytime you want. You've got no responsibility for the repairs and improvements, and you've got no responsibility as well. And the great thing is, you've now got a landlord which is committed to actually increasing your EPC.
Yep, and you've also got a
You
lot of
don't need to
security
invest
now.
in that.
The private residential tenancy gives you so much security as a tenant.
Yeah. So I'm going to coin a phrase. I think it was Harold Macmillan says, "You've never had it so good."
Yeah, that's true, though. That's true.
I'll tell you what, any tenants out there will give me pelts about this, about saying that. But I'm only tongue in cheek to a degree.
Yeah.
But you haven't had it so good when you compare it to the Rackman days, and where the Rackman in the 1960s just used to take somebody and throw them out in the street with all their stuff and say, "That's your tenancy finished." That's why the Housing Act 88 was brought in order to stop that. And that's why we get vilified and demonized because of people like Rachman and Van Hoosenfeld, Van Hoosenfeld was probably about the 90s, who did a similar thing and had, you know, these are one people and 2 million landlords in the whole of the UK. And yet we're all getting castigated for that type of person. We're actually getting castigated right now. Look at, you know, the Scottish government for that very reason. Because Patrick Harvey got chucked out of his house, you know, from his landlord, and now he's taking vengeance on every single landlord possible, all because of one landlord.
Yeah,
I'd like to kick that landlord in the teeth, to be honest. Should never have been a landlord in the first place. They don't know what it is to be a landlord. You know, landlord is a totally different thing. You're there to help and improve your tenant's quality of life, as far as I'm concerned. In terms of what I'm doing, and it just so happens I get a return on investment in that context. I'm not there to take as much money out of the tenant as possible. I'm there so we've got a win-win situation. Okay, somebody actually asked me, do you need notice to increase rent? I thought it was 3 months. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is 3 months. You've got to give notice to increase the rent. And it can be 3% automatically in Scotland. But if you're going for 6%, you have to apply to the rent registration service, Richard. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Rent Service Scotland.
Do you want to take us over investing in rental properties then? You know, and,
Yeah, so I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do obviously property investment, and though obviously
most people do. Sorry, Richard, but most people do think this is rocket science.
Yeah.
It ain't rocket science at all. It is, my God, this is so simple. I teach this all the time in this wealth creation show. If you go back for the 80 episodes, the other 79 episodes that we've done, and actually take notes and learn everything I've told you and what to do, you'd be a bloody PhD student in property investment. And it's all for nothing. But nobody wants to take that route. They just want the easy route, and they want to pay someone else to tell them what to do. But the reality is, you're going to end up having to do that anyway. Because these people that you paid to have someone else to teach you how to do it are actually just effectively only teaching you what I'm doing right now in this session, in the previous sessions. And that's what you don't understand. You're still going to have to pay that price. It's just that you feel better parting with money because you think you're actually getting something of value in return. But because you're getting it for free here, you take it for granted and think it's not worth anything.
Yeah.
But you don't realize what I'm telling you is exact. It's way beyond what they're doing. Way beyond what they're doing. You know, have they got that success that I've got? No. So how on earth could they teach you anything more? Because they would have had it already. This is the old thing about when people used to phone me up and say, I've got a great investment for you, Jim. Okay, you write down your net worth and I'll write down my net worth. And if your number's bigger than mine, I'll listen to you. Click. They hang up the phone. It's like, because you can't. I mean, how on earth is a broke man able to teach somebody to be rich?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what most of these Instagrammers and lavish lifestyles with my look at my car, look at my this, and look at my that. And it's like it's all leased and paid for by your company.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's the way you do it. No, that's the way you convince people to buy your course.
Yeah.
But there's some people out there that are worth their weight in gold, definitely.
Yeah. So let's run through just a typical example of buy to let. Now, you don't need a ton of money to do buy to let. You can do joint ventures and things, but let's say, for example, now say you had 20,000 to invest and you put 15,000, that's your 25% deposit on, say, a 60 grand flat in Fife. Now, remember, you've got ADS here, so I mean,
this is where everybody else goes outside of Fife and goes, what? A 60 grand flat? Really?
I know.
Foco, you can get a 60 grand flat. Yes,
Yeah.
you can get a £60,000 flat. So we'd need to do up a bit, wouldn't we? What would we spend on doing that up?
Yeah, so you'll have your ADS, obviously your 6%, remember that. And then say, I don't know, say about 5,000 to a fix up. Maybe you could maybe even incorporate your ADS into that if it's not a lot that needs done. But I mean, you're going to need to have that money there. Then obviously you rent the property out and get somebody who's a good tenant, or get your agent to find somebody who's a good tenant who's going to pay their rent every month. And that will more than cover the mortgage payments or the mortgage interest payments. And then the extra is what you call cash flow every month. And let's say on this particular property, it provides you with £250 cash flow per month. So that's not bad for a 20 grand investment.
Can I just qualify that by saying, you said, let's say it provides you with £250 in cash flow every single month. This is a fact. This isn't a let's make up some numbers in order to justify our reason. Because that's what a lot of TikTokers do, unfortunately. You'll see that quite a lot. Oh, I could get this flat for 100,000 and I could spend this amount and this is going to be worth this much and I'm going to be left with this much. And I go, have you done it? Well, no, it's just hypothetical. Exactly. It's hypothetical. It doesn't exist. You've made that shit up in order to justify your rhetoric, in order to sell somebody a course.
Yeah, but without going into exactly what your mortgage interest rate and payments and that would be and what the actual rent would be and things. But I mean, typically, once you've factored all that in, you're going to be about £250 cash flow every month. Now, that's not going to be nearly enough for you to just turn around and retire. And if you're thinking that, you're absolutely right. But it starts you as the first stepping stone.
Yeah.
And then once you build that up, and if you have maybe 2, 3, 4, and then maybe 5, then once you've got 5, you'll end up you're about £1,250 a month income coming for 5 properties, all running the same like that. And there's no magic involved in that. That will be your driver to financial freedom if you could build a portfolio like that.
Think about it this way, Richard. And this is, again, this goes back to my early days of trying to convince people to get into network marketing. Imagine what an extra £200 a month could do for you.
Yeah.
As your mortgage, are you struggling with your mortgage payments? Are you struggling with your utility bills? Are you struggling to feed yourself right now? Now, do you think reach into your savings and start depleting your savings, or take your savings, invest them in something that will give you a better yield and grow over a longer period of time, and therefore give you that income, but be there all the time? This is where I see it. A job, okay, you get to the end of the year, or the tax year, and your counter on your money resets to 0. And you have to start earning that money all over again. An investment like property, for example, your counter at the end of the year it could go down a wee bit, but it could stay exactly where it is. So you've earned that money, but you've still got the wealth in the property, and it might go up a bit, but you're starting from that point. So you're building on top of what you've just done every single year.
Yeah.
And this is like every investment. Investing is building on every single. This is why we talk about compounding. This is why we've done loads of shows about compounding as well, and compounding your wealth over time. So an extra 200 quid a month could be exactly what you want, and that's it. And then you're out. It's like, I'm happy with that. It's just a wee nest egg to keep me going, and a wee top up of what I want. Older generation, additional supplement to their pension.
Just that bit extra to keep them going. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily about getting 5 or 6 or 10 or 20. It's not necessarily about being as big as what I've got. That's not what it's about. It's about just generating enough income for you to be happy where you are, and give you the comfort and the choices that you actually want to do. That, to me, is financial independence.
Yeah.
Remember what I talked about? You could be financially independent. I mean, people have actually claimed to me, "Oh, I'm financially independent." So how are you financially independent? Well, I'm on the dole. Well, I can't argue with that. Yes, they are financially independent, aren't they? Because someone else is paying everything for them every single time. But I tell you what, their quality of life is going to be pretty shit. Yeah. It's not going to be great, because the dole's the minimum amount you can afford to live on. If that in itself, that's another debate. I know what it was like to be like that, because I was that when I was homeless and unemployed. So that you could argue you're financial independent at that point, but what is financial independence? That's where you've got to think about yourself. It's probably giving you a wee bit more freedom, and it's allowing you that 6 months to survive, but actually maintain the current lifestyle you've got. Now, whether you can say you're financial independent if you're on the dole is another story, because it's like nobody's going to flock to what you want to do and learn from you if that's your quality of lifestyle. Although sometimes I used to think to myself, God, I'm sitting working away here, and some of my tenants are actually in the pub having a great time during the day. I'm thinking, am I doing the wrong thing here? And it's like, no, you're not. Shut up, Jim. Moments of madness, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but that example that I ran through, and obviously it's quite a good example of the compounding effect, and also the fact that it takes time. It's not an overnight thing, especially if you want to ultimately achieve financial freedom and build a portfolio this way. Then your first, I mean, like you used an example earlier, Jim, your first few properties will happen over a longer period of time, and then it'll eventually snowball if you continue to grow, and it will snowball in a bigger way as you get bigger within your portfolio, if you choose to get to that level.
Yeah. So I was financial independent in the beginning, obviously, when I had this certain amount, and I continued to work. But I continued to work to reinvest and reinvest and reinvest. And when it came to decisions, like major decisions, and I mean major purchasing decisions, like should we get a new kitchen? I used to think to myself, how much is a new kitchen? £5,000. At that time, I was able to buy a property for £15,000. Am I going to get a new kitchen, or am I going to buy another property? What one's going to set me free?
Yeah.
New kitchen can wait. I'll put up with it for a wee while longer. And every single time I came to a decision where I had a bit of money, I would immediately ask myself, should I buy a new car, or should I get a new car, or should I get another property? And I used to say to myself every single time, and this is what's going on round the circuit now. This is, and I see it now, and in particular, the fast cars mentality. This is how I was able to afford this car. You know, it was a Lamborghini, or it was a BMW M3, or it was a M5, or it was something like that, because I leased it from the garage at £350 a month. And I invested in 2 properties which generated £350 a month, which actually paid for that BMW. And it's like, that's how I used to think. But when I got to the point where I was able to buy a car like that, I then turned around to myself and went, oh, but if I just hung on to my existing car, then I could accumulate that money I would have spent on the lease of the £350 a month, and that would be about £4,000 a year, and that £4,000 a year could buy me another property. So I'll just hold off leasing another car. And that's the sort of mentality I always, and I still do that today. I mean, there's no surprise, Richard, when you realise, and you know this anyway, the only thing I actually own in a car is a 1981 T25 camper van, which was £5,500.
Yeah.
And I don't own any other car, and I've got no desire to own any car. That's it in a nutshell. Well, why would I? I just need something to get me A to B. I've got a company car that does that, and my company car is completely tax deductible because I use it for company business all the time.
Yeah.
Personal use is my wife's car. So I can say quite comfortably, see how I've just done that slightly. Most people go, how did you do that? And it's like, well, I told you, because personal use is my wife's car. If we want to go anywhere and it's a personal use and I'm not doing anything to do with business at all, which is very rare, then we use my wife's car. So no surprise, when I went to the airport, my wife took, she's going to come up and pick me when I come back. Yeah, I'm sitting in Spain on my own. Yes, I am sitting in Spain on my own. Folks going, what? But I'm out here working as well at the same time.
But we just spoke about that before we come on camera, about what you were like, how you were spending your time and what you were doing and how you were promoting things and using your time.
Tax deductible, sitting in Spain working.
Yeah,
I'd rather be here. and that's the sort of things when you grow in property investment and you grow in other business areas, you then begin to learn the wealth secrets of other people far more successful than you. And it's like, it still blows my mind. It's like, why did I know about that? You know, about things like LLPs and capital gains transfers and all the rest of it. Why did I not know about that? And it's like, well, I probably was told that at some point in time in the past, but it wasn't the point of readiness where I was able to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of readiness is when preparation is what people do now. That's what you're doing right now for most people watching this. Preparation, in other words, learning, and opportunity appear, the point of readiness happens. And that's when it goes ballistic.
Yeah.
That's what you need to get yourself to. So don't be frustrated about how am I going to get financial independence? How am I going to get financial freedom? It will come as a natural byproduct of you following a system and a path in order to reach that goal. That's all. Whatever that goal may be. I mean, I don't literally have any goals anymore. It is just wealth building, and it's passed
just
on.
continue that wealth creation journey. Yeah.
I suppose the goal for me is, and I went on a course recently with Andy Harrington for public speaking, and they said, you know, why are you here? What do you want? Hey, do you want 6-figure, 7-figure incomes and stuff like that? I went, no, I have a duty now to make as much money as I can within reason, because I could drive myself crazy here, and then give it to the people that actually need it.
Yeah.
I don't need it anymore. But I tell you what, if you can, and it's the same for a lot of people out there, if you're retired, it's a classic example of how people retire, and then they go and help other people that are less fortunate themselves when they retire, because there's a sense of purpose.
So people retire and volunteer and do things and take part in community things.
And I got that idea from the Born Free Foundation.
Right.
And the Born Free Foundation was when we met Virginia McKenna, who actually heads up the Born Free Foundation, who is the star of Born Free the film. So when we met Virginia McKenna, and Tony, my daughter, went to Born Free to work there on their sanctuary for a month with Elaine in Shamwari in Africa, then Tony wanted to stay there forever. And she says, I'd love to work here as a volunteer forever, and I don't really want to come back. And this is my life, looking after the lions and tigers at Lions Rock and stuff like that. And Born Free actually said quite a profound statement to her. Says, look, Tony, you're training to be an accountant. Says, we can get volunteers anytime we want, 10 a penny, but they'll never earn the amount of income that you can earn. And we would rather have you go and be an accountant and actually give us money.
And help them financially.
So we can help everybody else, because we can get loads of volunteers. What we don't have is donations and contributors. And that, for me, put a wee flag in and a wee message in my mind saying, you don't need anything. Notice how I always talk about need. I never talk about want. I've never ever wanted for anything. I don't want for anything. But I don't, and it's funny how I've changed that, because I remember when I was younger, I want this, I want this, and want that, and I want this, and want that. I used to look for the Littlewoods catalogue at Christmas and go, oh, I want this, I want that, and it's like, that's what you used to look at. Can I have a wee chocolate machine, dispense? Yeah. You put a 2 pence in, the wee mini chocolate bar came out. These are the sort of things I wanted when I was a kid. And so I always wanted for something when I was younger. But now I never actually think like that. My mind has changed to it's what do I need? And I don't really need anything, because I've got everything I always ever wanted. That's weird, eh? What do I need? I don't need anything, because I've got everything I always ever wanted. I don't think it's that at the end. What I'll qualify that by saying is, if I really do want it, I can have it. And just knowing that you can have it is just as easy as anything. Look at the Lamborghini Huracan was a classic example of that. For a week, I went through the whole mental phase and the excitement of owning a Lamborghini Huracan, and then I went and bought a house instead.
It's like you say. I think in your mind, if you know that you can, it's probably enough.
It's like I remember hearing from the stage from my mentors as well, way back in the beginning, them talking about the story about, the false lottery tickets.
Yeah.
And people get the false lottery tickets, they give it to their partner, they're filming them, scrubbing them off and getting the lottery tickets, and the partner goes, holy shit, I've just won £1 million. And they're dancing about the room like there's no tomorrow. They've won £1 million all over, and they can't believe it, and it's absolutely unbelievable. And then their partner goes, aye, but it was a false one. And I remember watching this person, and they turned round, and it's so profound. And I thought, yeah, beauty, that's excellent. That's an excellent response. And this person turned around to their partner and said, but you'll never know what it's like to win the lottery. You imagine that, eh? That's what people
do. They do, though.
They want the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
They don't want the lottery really to win the lottery. They want what it can give them.
That feeling.
And it's the feeling. And if you can replicate that feeling, you could have that every day of your life. You just need to remember it, and you just need to anchor it. Tony Robbins talks about this a lot.
Yeah.
Your certain moves. And this is what I talk about when you get up in the morning, put your arms above your head. Because immediately put your arms above your head, the first thing you do is it's a celebration. And your triggers and your mind celebrate straight away. And what happens is that then when you do that, immediately what happens is your endorphins and everything immediately shoot straight to your brain, because they go, you must be celebrating something. So let's celebrate with you. So it triggers it off. And that's why you get that huge rush.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need alcohol to do that. You don't need smoking to do that. You don't need gambling to do that. You don't need an addiction to do that, because effectively that's what it is. Be honest with yourself out there. That's what it is. It's effectively an addiction. You don't need these things to do that, because you can replicate that every single time, anytime you want to do it. Why do you think you do that? What's the feeling when you get when you do that? Yes. See that? See how that? See
Yeah.
that I'm getting a huge rush out of just doing that, and yet I've done nothing. And
Mhm.
you're getting the benefit of that as well because
Yeah.
it rubs off on other people around
Aye.
about you, and it comes across. And that's how you excite yourself and excite people. You just don't need to go too far. Sometimes I go a bit hyper.
No, that's good. And I think, well, as we've covered today, I mean, whether you're currently financially secure or financially independent, or if you are financially free, or even if you're just maybe starting out, then there is a map in front of you. And with any trip, I think it's important, like you say, Jim, to enjoy the journey
Yeah.
that takes you to where you are. And it's not all about just snapping your fingers and things attaining financial freedom overnight. It's
Yeah.
about the life lessons that you learn along the way, the relationships you build, and the surprises and setbacks that you will inevitably come up against, but learning for them and seeing how you come through the other side. And it's the whole journey to financial freedom. I think that it's the whole experience.
Yeah. This is so simple. We just complicate it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
all I
People
can say
people
to them.
complicate most
Yeah.
things.
And that's us.
Yeah.
Another hour just passed like that.
That was a good one, though, and I'm sure that that'll have resonated with a lot of people watching. Thanks for watching, Gary, Norman. I know you've got quite a lot of people watching on TikTok, Jim. And thanks for keeping it interactive, guys. We will be back next Monday, as usual, on the Wealth Creation Show at 12:30. I will be hosting the Letting Show this Saturday at 9:30, so tune into that as well.
Perfect.
And for today, that's us. Thanks for joining, Jim.